Hey guys, the topic for today's video is ways to collect the user feedback. So if you're a product manager, you already probably know that how important it is for us to know what the users' needs are, what their pain points are, what do they like, what do they dislike, so that we can use all of this rich data to make informed decisions. But you all know that, right? But probably where most people get stuck is how do I do that, right? So the answer to that is collecting the user feedback, and there are multiple ways in which a user feedback can be collected. If you are interested to know more about it, keep watching. Now, the first way in which you can collect a user feedback is the most obvious one, which most people, I'm assuming, already know of, are the surveys and questionnaires. So as the name says, if you can create a survey or the list of questions to send it to the end user and ask them very direct questions, it is going to be really helpful for you. There, you can use as simple as Google Forms, or there are many tools available outside like SurveyMonkey or Typeform. You can use all these tools to be able to create a survey and ask very specific questions to the end users, like what is it that they like about the product, what is it that they wished the product had, is this helping them or not. So there are a lot of smart questions which we can ask the end user directly, and it's going to be a very powerful tool for you to be able to use to gather the user feedback. Now, a word of caution here is that you need to be very smart in asking the right questions, because users are not going to fill your surveys repeatedly. Maybe you can do it once in 6 months or once a quarter based on whatever your equation with the users are. So make sure whenever you're doing it, you're using that opportunity in the most appropriate way, and you are gathering valuable insights out of it. And how you can gather valuable insights is by asking the right questions to the end users. So this is the first and the most commonly used method out there to gather the user feedback. Now, the next way you can gather the user feedback is user interviews. So this one also many people in the organization use it. But I think the most important point to notice here is that how are you going to get that information, extract that information out of the end user. So interviews means you're interviewing them one-on-one. In some cases, you could have a group interview, but I would not recommend, a larger group, because a lot of people in the larger group do not tend to open up, and then the whole point of doing the interviews to gather the feedback is nullified. So one-on-one is the most ideal, or if the people or the end users, they are in the same department, you could maybe have 2 or 3 from one team together as a group interview. That's also fine, but then you got to make sure that you are able to extract that information out of them on whatever you want, what are their pain points. And there are a lot of good practices that you can follow when taking user interviews, like you can ask them to share their screens and say them can you use the product, how you use it, without you talking so much. Like, the thing that you have to be very cautious of here is that in user interviews you don't talk much, let them talk much, so that you are getting that candid review from them on how they are using the product. So a very simple example is maybe when you've designed the product and you think this is going to be the first touch point that a user would come to, ideally, because that's how you think. But give the user the opportunity to speak up and use the product and do the hands-on. Let them screen share so that you can see themselves on where do they start off, what do they think about this thing, what do they think about the usability of the product. So let them drive the discussion rather than you spending more than half of the time asking questions. The purpose of user interviews should be to let users drive that, and so that you can get those valuable insights into how users perceive the product, how they actually use the product in the real time. It's a very, very powerful tool, but you got to be very cautious of using this so that you get the maximum benefit out of this user feedback method. Another user feedback method could be focus groups. It's something similar to what I just said earlier, but wherein a group of people are on a call, or they are physically present on one location, and you are organizing like a pep talk and saying them let's discuss this topic. Again, the things which I said in one-on-one user interviews would apply here as well, that in these focus group you've got to make sure that those people whom you have chosen to be part of the focus group, they are given the opportunity to speak up, and they are given the opportunity to say things on how they feel about the product, how this product solves their problem, or what is it that is lacking in this product which they wished for. So even in these focus groups, you've got to make sure that the output that you're getting out of the conversation, you are giving them the opportunity to speak rather than you asking a lot of questions. And obviously a good practice whenever you're doing user interviews, either one-on-one or in a focus group, you've got to record these, because you are not going to be, you don't want to be spending so much time making physical notes over there. Yes, obviously some of these you can, but make sure you are recording it. It's personally what I do as well. It's really helped me, because people talk a lot of things. You got to focus and be present in that moment and listen to all those things so that you can contribute whenever there is a need. Like you are the moderator here or the facilitator here in case of group discussions, so that you are able to contribute rather than taking notes on what they're saying. But when you hear back the recording, you will get a lot of different things. Oh, I could have missed this. I would not have definitely written this down, but this person said this for, maybe a couple of seconds, and it's so valuable insight. So definitely make sure when you're doing these user interviews and when you are doing these focus groups, you are recording these meetings so that you can play them back and listen to each and every line and derive something out of it. So these user feedback method, both of these are going to be really helpful for you as a product manager. Now the other feedback method is providing the feedback forms within the product. So when people are using the product within the experience itself, you are providing a form, like somewhere, obviously you'll have to work with the product designer for all these things, but somewhere within the product it's there wherein you're asking them to fill a form. Maybe form doesn't have to be so lengthy. I just have to have a couple of main questions that you want to get an answer on, and put that within the product experience so that you don't have to do something separate to gather that feedback. So that is also a really good method. Obviously it applies to what type of feedback you want to collect and at what stage. So I think you've got to mix and match all of these things to derive what you want to come at. The other feedback method is customer support interactions. So what I mean by that is, a lot of times in many products you are not directly speaking with the customer on a day-to-day basis. Obviously you have means to connect with them, but many companies operate in a way that the customers are reaching out to the customer support team. So whatever those channels are, it could be within your Slack, or it could be any forum out there where people are discussing a lot of things. It could be, other ways wherein customer support is helping the end user. So make sure you are aware of what those conversations are happening. You do not need to chime in every time. That's why customer support is there. The product manager doesn't need to chime in on each and every query that the end user is asking. That is the role of the customer support, but you've got to make sure you're keeping an eye on them. You are part of all those groups or all those channels or whatever, wherever those conversations are happening, so that you can keep an eye on them and you can know, oh, this is how the user thinks, oh, this is how the user is feeling the pain point. Obviously if there is something blockage for the end user or the support is not able to answer the questions, they are going to come back to you and ask the product manager on how to handle this or how to answer them, or when are we going to fix it and stuff like that. But many companies, they have the way there is a customer, then there is a customer support, and then a product manager comes. So make sure you are keeping an eye on the interactions that are happening with the customer support from the end user directly, so you can get a lot of clues from there, and that could be a valuable means for you to gather the user feedback. Now the other user feedback gathering process could be social media monitoring. Now again, this doesn't apply to every product, because not every product gets listed on the social media from the company. Some companies have, like most of the companies I would say, have a social media strategy. They have a social media presence. In that case, do follow those pages. Mostly it would be on LinkedIn or stuff like that. So make sure you are following those pages and you are once in a while going there and keeping an eye on what interactions are happening there. Are there users facing trouble like accessing the product altogether? Because ideally the type of comments on social media platforms would be wherein people are not even able to get into the product itself. There would not be a lot of detailed commenting on the social media platforms per se. The most of them would be related to registration and the login and stuff like that. so the early stages of the product. So those are the things that you can keep an eye on to gather the feedback from the users on, are they having any troubles in accessing the product at all, or something like that. The other way of user feedback is usability testing. Now, there are two ways you can do usability testing. One is before the product gets developed, and one is after the product gets developed. I talk about the before product gets developed is, so you could have like the design mocks or a prototype prepared, and you could give that or interview the end users and show them the mocks and tell them, this is what the experience is going to look like. How do you feel about it? Let me know your initial thoughts. So if you do that, design mocks testing in the form of a usability, you can get a lot of good feedback. You could make those mocks, dynamic, wherein people can click on it and it goes to the next screen, and, clicking there, results in some action, like as if it was a real product that they're doing, but it's actually a prototype. So, that usability testing before development is having a lot of value. It has a lot of benefits because like that, product designer and product manager have to work together, wherein you are testing the product UI with the users even before the development has started, so that you're not building something that the end users do not even like at all. So that usability testing before the product development starts going to be really helpful. You could also do usability testing after the product development, after a few iterations. So, you could call it beta testing, but you could have a couple of chosen end users. You don't want everybody to test everything. You're not going to get anything out of it. Just choose or hand pick a couple of end users who have a good history with the company, who have a good history with the product itself, and that they will provide a very constructive feedback. Even if it's negative, they will provide a good feedback so that you can work on it. You don't want such people to test the product who are just going to say bad things about it without any intention of us fixing it or providing a feedback in positive manner. So you have to be really mindful that you're choosing a handful of people who are going to provide constructive feedback. Give them the product to test before it goes out live for everybody. So that is called a beta testing phase. So that could be a usability testing that you do with the end users, for a couple of features that got developed on the product itself. Not necessarily like a full launch for everyone. A step before that, getting the usability testing done by the end users could really benefit you and could provide you really good feedback on your product. Now, the other way you could gather user feedback is analytics, the most obvious one. So you could have the analytical tools embedded in your product itself, like Google Analytics or Mixpanel. There are a lot of analytical tools available out there. So you could have them embedded within your product so that on the back end, like how is the user using the product? Where are they clicking the most? Where are they getting stuck the most? Or how are they using the product? Which things are getting the maximum clicks? Which of them are not at all getting the maximum clicks? So having those analytical tools, have that GA code installed on the product. Make sure you have the reports built out based on that GA code that's installed, so that how the product is getting used. I have done a video before talking about reporting a lot. So this is that point wherein you can use all of those. You can install the Google Analytical code on the product. You can build reports out of it, and then you monitor those reports on a frequent basis. I'm going to link the video above, and it's also going to be in the description below. But that particular reporting aspect of it comes from the perspective of gathering the user feedback. Now, the other way you could gather the user feedback is engaging in the user communities. Now, a lot of time, people who are the end users of your product, they are, they find one way or the other to engage with themselves. If you don't have a community yourself on your own product, they would be engaging somewhere else, because there are already a lot of online communities like Discord, etc. available out there. So you should keep an eye on if there are users specific to your product on some other online communities and how they are talking about the product. So that is another way you could get candid reviews from people on how your product is getting perceived, because for them there is no presence of your company on that third party online community, but you are still going to be there, not representing your company, but being yourself and seeing how your product is getting talked about amongst a larger group of people. That could also really give you a good user feedback. Now, the other user feedback method is A/B testing. I'm sure many of you would have heard that as well, but effectively create two versions of a product and see which version of them is performing better. So that's why it's called A/B testing or split testing, wherein you have some users test certain products, some users test a different version of it from a usability or user interface standpoint. The functionality is obviously going to remain same, but the user interface or the user experience is going to be a little different, and make different set of users test both these things, and you see which of these user experience is getting the most positive reviews. So you can do this A/B test and gather the user feedback on which experience is resonating with the end user the most, and then make a decision on which one do you want to have going forward. So doing A/B testing on a frequent basis really gives good insight to product manager and product designer. Now, last but not the least, another user feedback gathering mechanism that you can use is going to the review website. So ideally for a product manager, this should be part of the competitive analysis that you do. So other similar products out there, and they obviously, most of them gets listed on a review platform, ratings and review platforms. So go out there and see what people are talking about those products, because effectively your product is the similar one, and whatever things have not been accomplished by the other product, you can build the similar thing and solve that user pain point in your own product. So that competitive analysis and going to the review websites can also give you really good feedback on what people do not like, because usually these ratings and review platforms like G2 Crowd or Trust Radius and products like these, they allow users to provide a very comprehensive feedback. So it's like a full paragraph or even more than that, because they give incentives for it and stuff like that. But that full paragraph is like rich information for you as a product manager, which you should definitely read and see what is it that people are expecting out of products similar to what you're building. So that is another user feedback mechanism that you can use. Now, to sum it all up, I have spoken about a lot of ways wherein you can gather user feedback. The important point to note here is that you've got to mix and match these and see what works best for you, what works best for the types of users that you're working with, for the type of product you are working with. I have provided you the whole list of different mechanisms of user feedback collection, but you've got to see which one you can benefit from and which one will work based on the situation you are in. You do not need to use everything out of it, just handpick a couple of them which will work the best for you. And it's also important to note that you do these user feedback collection processes frequently. It's not like once a year you do it and then you keep building stuff and you're not even listening to what users are saying. You need to develop a process in your organization wherein you are gathering the user feedback on a frequent basis. After 3 months is a good time. Even before that, once there is a release, there would be a lot of comments on release notes as well. So, you read all the things which users are saying, but make sure at least once in 3 months you are following one of these methods and collecting the user feedback, right? So, build the cohorts of users and see which user are you going to perform which sort of testing with. So it's going to be a really beneficial tool for you as a product manager to do this frequently and actually listen into what users want and then implement it in the product that you have. So I would highly recommend doing this. If I have missed out on anything, and if there is something that you follow and I don't know about, definitely do let me know via comments below. Otherwise, let me know which of these were like a light bulb moment for you. Oh, I completely did not think about it. I'm just going to go right away and start implementing it and see how this works for me. In that case, also do let me know via comments below. If there's nothing else, I am going to see you all next week. Bye bye.